He's currently playing with trains.
Oh, that's too bad because I think he's tired enough to go to sleep. But checkity check check. Checkity check check. All right, that's check check.
Check, check.
That's checkity check. Say howdy, Bessy.
Howdy. Hello.
Hello.
Bonjour.
Hello, everybody. Hello. Hello, Brian G. Nay is on here. Mr. Luggage himself, Damien Larson. Damien, give me an update on my last batch. How are they coming along? Scud, because I got some new ones that I'd like to send to you. If there's anybody else out there that would like to do some painting for us, we have a huge batch of miniatures that we would love to get painted up. It helps us, have a better selection of miniatures to use on our game days. So, hobby as long as you don't drink the paint water. Okay. Hello, Clyde Dashing. Hello, DW Low. Talamicus. Oh, we drank the paint water. I think crayons work really, really well. Half done, all the characters done, just got distracted. No worries. No worries, brother. We appreciate all your help. Slow grow Kings of War League eating up painting time lately. At least I have leftover zombies for use with Pulp Magic. Very interesting. Yeah, I think the Kings of War is where I got my zombies from, and I think they've been repackaged and ended up in other boxes as well. Mr. Vernjeski, good to hear Mr. Vernjeski's on here with us. Marty Divine, GW. GW Rules Holt. Question: will the new scenario books be in bookie
book form or comic form? Bookie book. Right?
The same as the our new format, whatever you want to call that, I guess. So and we really do need to do one of these. Why doesn't somebody put one of these together? I tell you what, it's horrible. The if it comes down to me having to do it, that creates a big logger jam where very little gets done because I work at a snail's pace around here. But it wouldn't be too tough for somebody to put together, a scenarios book for 2009. No, 2018 and 2019 are done. 2020 and 2021, I think still need to be put into scenario form. And there is some other stuff that I would like to include once we actually get around to doing the scenarios books again. But that's basically taking scenarios that are already written and adding a little bit of extra material and putting it in there. I mean, it would probably be a week's worth of work or maybe 2 weeks of work to get it hammered out. But
win some, lose some.
Yeah, takes me forever. It seems like
this is Legos
or Lego-like.
Well, some of them are real Legos.
Some of them are real Legos.
And then some are Lego.
Yeah. Are we there? Are we there yet? 8:01. 8:01. So yeah, Max is doing wonderful. He is now to us. We never really felt like he was sick anyway. He was always full of energy. He was
He was
always
full
running
of vim and
around.
vigor.
Uh-huh. He was always, it wasn't until the doctors started poking their nose in that
Doctors.
doctors finding out stuff, inventing new things.
Parts.
To us, he was always super max. So he was never sick to us, not in the way that, you know, that they were kind of making it out to be. So there was a lot of trepidation about the idea of fixing something that we never really saw as a big issue for him, this narrowing in his aorta. But they said that as time went on, it would affect him more and he could lose like the use of his extremities. And it could even, be worse than that. So, so we took him at their word and went ahead and did the procedure and everything. And now he's recovering remarkably fast and doing remarkably well. We had 2 doctor's visits this week, um, cardiac visits. He had an echo and
EKG.
EKG, and so lots of tests, lots of scans.
X-rays.
X-rays also, and just lots of stuff going on to make sure that he's okay. And then we'll be back next month to check on his progress and make sure he's doing. But he's at home and he's full of vim and vigor.
This would be the only procedure he would need unless
Yeah,
the
we're hoping.
stitching where the scarring is, if
Yeah.
that doesn't like grow with him, then they'll have to go in and like balloon that up.
Yeah.
But as of
Yeah.
right now,
Our prayers are that this is the only procedure that he will need. So that's our,
yeah.
what we're working off of. So if something happens later on,
But today he got
isn't
a
true.
clean bill of health.
Yep.
They checked their work.
Mm-hmm.
They said their
Got
work
his
was good.
stitches out.
Got his stitches out.
The horrible scar on his back is almost will send you into shock. I think if somebody looks at the injury that's actually on his back, even now, that there is a terrible scar across his back where and I mean it's still not healed. It's still, they opened him up and went in there and were working around. So there was a big,
It looked better than I thought.
yeah.
His chest tube ones were a little bit.
The chest tubes, yeah, yeah. Anyway, um, bless his heart. He was really upset today. We went in and took the stitches out and took off the last bandage that he actually had on. So we took off the last bandage, and the stitches came out today. And yeah, he went through the roof. He was scared, and he was.
Yeah, I think he was more scared than
Yeah.
actually in pain, but it
Right.
was just like.
Yeah, that was pretty
Sure.
scary and kind of traumatizing.
And he wanted his brave badge.
He wanted his bravery badge.
His
Yeah.
bravery badge.
Yeah.
Which was just a sticker that I think got washed in the washing machine. We might need to order him something.
Okay. Another bravery badge.
Yeah, something a little more permanent.
So on our long trips to Oklahoma City, which is about an hour and a half to 2 hours or so, depending on what route we take and how big of a hurry we're on, I actually spend that time, kind of mulling over rules and ideas and things like that. I was recently thinking about a board game idea. So, I spent about a week obsessing over the idea of making a board game. And then I realized, you know what, this is going to take a lot more work than I have time for. And I set it aside and went back to working on something that I probably should have been working on. So the two big projects that we have going right now is finishing up the Tomb of the Serpent second edition. We need to get that book finished. Manny Marino has been just an incredible, like Hangman. Yes, a board game like Hangman. Exactly.
Gay-bopoly.
But a high-end Hangman with all the bells and whistles. Vigor is better than vinegar. You know, cool scars to show off later. Yep. Yeah, he's really doing well. You know, we feel, and the doctors concurred as well, and I concur. So
I concur. They concurred with our concurrence.
with our concurrence. So spells. Having a lot of fun with the spells right now, and really trying to get an idea about what we're going to put into the initial spell deck. It will be about 50 cards or so, so there'll be room enough for a couple of types of spells in there, at least to get started with. I'd like to do about 15 of one type and about 15 of another type, which I already have far more than that. I already have, I think, close to over 20 of one of them and very close to 20 of another one. So I'm actually going to have to thin down the list, but that's not a problem because that's kind of what you should do in this process. I'm a big believer in the idea that that playtesting is really, really important. I don't know if you want to go check on him or not. I learned a long time ago that I don't always have wonderful ideas. That's a hard reality to reach as a game designer. But the truth is that I have a lot of ideas that are pretty freaking stupid. And luckily, Bessy is the first line of defense. So oftentimes when I'm sitting down and I'm explaining rules to her, either just me vocalizing them and saying them out loud and trying to explain it to her, I'll realize, you know what, that doesn't really sound all that good now that I've actually said it. Unfortunately, I often feel like a lot of game designers don't go through that step. You know, they just think that their ideas are so wonderful and they put them down in a game. And then they leave it to you as the purchaser of that game to find out, oh, well, that's kind of goofy. That doesn't really work. So luckily, Bessy is the first line of defense on that. She shuts down a lot of stuff, a lot of my crazy ideas, and she goes, you know what? That doesn't really sound like that's going to work. She's also good at suggesting ideas. So as we've been working on the magic stuff, we've been trying to draw some inspiration from things like, the Middle Earth stuff, from the way magic worked in Robert E. Howard's Hyboria, from the way magic works in H.P. Lovecraft's mythos sort of stories, from how magic works in things like Harry Potter and that sort of stuff. And all of those have kind of contributed inspirational ideas and things that we're kind of toying with and trying to see how it will fit into the way we want magic to work. One of the basic ideas really is that magic is fairly rare and it is also fairly dangerous to be fiddling around with. So there's a mishap chance if low level characters or even high level characters are messing around with magic which they can't actually control, then you have a chance of creating a mishap and something bad can happen. So what I'm hoping to include is about 10 mishap cards. So if a mishap occurs, you'll get to draw one of the 10 mishap cards. Some of them are relatively goofy. and they it just says the spell fizzles and doesn't do anything. Or maybe you have to draw a couple horror cards, or or you get thrown back, because you couldn't control the power of the spell. It could also be that you can't even use that spell again during this scenario, so things like that.
Hmm.
There's a lot of different things that can happen when you get the mishaps. Now, we wanted the magic to be very much like the rest of the game. So it's not like you're going to have to learn brand new mechanics. There are some things that we're going to introduce specific to magic, but most of it, the core mechanics of the way it works is very much like,
Pulp Alley.
yeah, it's Pulp Alley. So it is an action to cast a spell. Some spells are full actions. Some of the very powerful spells are full actions. Most spells are just simply an action. That means you can move up to 6 inches and still cast it. If it is just a normal spell that's either being cast on yourself or a patch of ground or something like that, then you're going to have a difficulty. You're going to have a challenge number, and all you have to do is equal or exceed that with the number of dice you rolled. So let's say you're trying to put a patch of thorns out there, a perilous area. You want to make a perilous area appear possibly around an enemy or just
Hmm.
around a plot point or something like that. Then you would roll your dice. Do I have this hooked up?
I have no idea.
Oh,
Oh, you do.
look at that. So let's say Lady Elaine here is trying to cast a spell, and she has it's a cunning spell. So she's going to end up using her cunning for it. The number of successes that she rolls basically represents how long. The number of successes represents the power of the spell. So the more dice you roll, the better your chance of having a powerful version of that spell, right? It's like a high level versus a high level wizard or a low level wizard, right? A low level wizard isn't going to get the same effect normally as a high level wizard. Somebody that's rolling 4 die 10 for a spell is going to be much better off than somebody rolling 2 die 6 for a spell. What's Clyde Dashing got to say? Marvel Crisis Protocol has made a great miniature taco truck. Very nice. Check out the taco truck. Some spells are half actions and half waiting for the taco truck. Okay. Um, so the depending on what the spell is, most of them the power is variable. Occasionally it's a non-variable spell, so regard all you want to do is make sure you get enough successes, and the extra successes don't really do anything. So there's a handful of those
Hmm.
spells, but most of them, the number of successes you roll is going to
Is
add to
important. Yeah.
the success of the spell. So if you were casting like the perilous area
Hmm.
spell, then that is based the number of successes that you roll is going to, maybe it'll affect how big the spell is, how big the area is, or maybe it will affect how long the spell stays in play before it withers and crumbles to dust. So that's our way of representing how a powerful wizard is going to
Hmm.
have more powerful spells. If you're casting a spell at an enemy, then it becomes an opposed check, and it works just like opposed checks do in Pulp Alley, which means you have to roll more successes than the target rolls. And they oftentimes do not defend with the same trait that you're attacking them with. So oftentimes, cunning will, a spell that's based on cunning, the defender will defend with their finesse. If somebody's using their finesse to cast a spell, then oftentimes the target will defend with their might. So there's that kind of interaction of the spells too. Marty Devine, is this going to be more straight up magic, or could you see it working for Star Wars? Yeah, it's definitely I it's definitely for a wide array of different stuff. So I could see it definitely being force powers. I could see it being psionics. I could just see it being psychic abilities. Yada yada yada. So it's kind of intended to be pretty broad
Yeah.
strokes,
Yeah.
so that it can cover a lot of ground. We're looking at, including things like familiars and magic items, and will wands actually help a spellcaster? And do you have an apprentice, and yada yada yada. So there's going to be a lot of fun stuff
Mhm.
that you can kind of work into your story. Um, so if you cast a spell on an enemy character, the idea is that they will get to use whatever trait will defend against it. And then if you successfully cast them on him, there's basically going to be two types of spells to start off with. One will be a spell that stays over time. So the power is really based on how long that spell is going to stay in play. So if she hits Ramjeet and rolls a bunch of successes, then that could keep the spell in play for a long time, and you kind of mark that with your tokens to show how long that spell is going to stay in play. There's also spells that just happen, and then they, a little zap spell or something like that. Bzzzt. That'll just happen, and you don't actually. For those, the power of the spell kind of represents how many hits could be done, or the area that could be struck by your lightning or whatever it is, your force blast. So there's a lot of stuff going on. So it's a great time to suggest spells. As it is right now, I have more than I can use to start with. But it's always nice to hear from folks and what you would like to see. I have enjoyed using imperil and deflection spells you issued way back. Yep. Yeah, those are versions of those are still on the list. So they'll probably end up getting changed a little. Um, So, of course, we have spells that do nothing more than give your character perks and, I'm sorry, bonuses to certain attributes, right? Buffs.
Mhm.
There are spells that buff up characters, and they can be cast either on yourself or other friendly characters, most of them. We have spells that can give you abilities, like, let's say, yeah, a flying spell. Well, it basically just gives you the winged ability, or the armor. If you want to be armored, then you can cast the armored spell on you, and then it makes you armored. Um, you can also cast debuffs, for folks that know those terms, on enemies that will try to cause their stats to go down. So it could cost someone to lose their a dice in cunning or dodge, or that sort of stuff. I also had a spell, and I really like this one. It's one where you cast it on an enemy, and they they view the caster as a friendly model. So that totally changes that character's
Yeah.
perspective. So Elaine could throw that spell on Ramjeet. Let's say if she was successful, and if he failed to stop it, then it could keep him tied up for possibly 3 turns, where he would not consider Elaine to be an enemy. Now, that does not change his perspective of the other characters that are in play.
Mhm.
He would
Right.
still see Millie as an enemy. He would still
Lucky.
see Lucky as an enemy. It only changes how he sees Elaine. So, and it doesn't mean that Elaine gets to control his actions. It simply changes the terminology. Ramjeet does not consider Lady Elaine to be an enemy. She is considered to be
Yeah.
a friendly model, and that has a ripple effect as it goes through the rules. So that's a fun one too.
Yeah, we have at least one healing, if not
Yeah.
different
I think right
options.
now I think I have two different healings. There's there's a healing wave that radiates out from the caster and can target multiple friendly models, including themselves. And that one's a little less powerful than the one. And then you have a healing touch where you can actually heal somebody that you're in contact with. That is a more direct healing. So those are the balancing pieces there. Fail spell card, you cast Slobbering Dog.
For one round, the caster is knocked to the ground while a Saint Bernard slobs all over their face.
Oh, I like that. I like that. That's a good one.
Bottomless
That's a
can of
good one.
beans spell.
Oh, good. Good. So lots of fun stuff. A good mix. So once we actually get a list ready for playtesting, I'm going to need to know who wants to help us out a little bit. So we take playtesting very, very serious. It is not it's not an inconsequential part of the process. It's very important to the process that we actually play this and know how it's going to work. We play this game every week, at least once every week. So we want to actually make sure everything works the way we want it to work.
Yep.
Which brings me, just real quickly, I wanted to share a fun anecdote. Who's ever gone to a Games Workshop store? Has anybody out there gone to a Games Workshop store? I bet you GW Rules goes to a Games Workshop store. Unless the target successfully cracks open a brandy, Craig. Okay. So I think was Bessy's first time or maybe second time. It was her second.
It was my second, okay?
It was her second time. And I'm going to say technically the first time we went, I don't think she had really a good idea of what she was looking at. It was a strange world. And I don't think there was anybody else possibly in there at the time. But this time when we went in there, there were a couple tables of people playing, and she had a much better sense of what all the figures were and things like that. So let's get Bessy's first impressions of the world of Games Workshop.
Smelly.
She says smelly. That's not. Was it really?
There was a funk, a little creeping funk.
She has a very sensitive nose. A creeping funk in the room. That may have been me.
No, I know your funk.
She knows my funk. So there was
familiar.
There was an extra funk, and there was the presence of an extra funk. What else did you notice?
There was a bit of squabbles.
There was a bit of squabbling.
And as soon as I heard it, I was immediately like, "Oh, tell me more."
There was a bit of squabbling
about a rule.
The rules squabbling. Has anybody experienced that when they've been playing? Is that like is that?
And then they asked the manager. Tad, possibly? I don't know.
Tad or Thad or Thaddeus.
I think they just made up names for him.
They just made up names.
He kind of half-heartedly gave an answer, and then
he gave them a ruling.
And the other guy didn't like it, so then they continued. And the line was, "Are you just going to ignore Tad?" And in fact, he did.
So yeah, I remember those and the micro measuring, and
they had a lot of like ready to go measuring tapes on like the little gun things.
Laser pointers, and it was just it's been a long time since I've played any Games Workshop games, and honestly, I have an enormous amount of respect for them. They were one of the games that really got me into all of this stuff, and without them, I don't know that I would have ever decided to have done any of this stuff. So they were a huge inspiration for us. But as time went on, their games kind of moved away from where I was wanting to play and what I was enjoying. So like 10th edition, you guys know this, and I don't know if anybody out there is like a G like a big GW player, but they're up to like 10th edition of Warhammer 40K. And I don't even know that it's called Warhammer 40K anymore, but this huge Leviathan box set, I guess, is what 10th edition is now. And what has blown my mind, and I'm not knocking Games Workshop. I love their miniatures. I think they make some of the most beautiful miniatures out there. They are pricey. They are pricey for plastic figures. That's pretty pricey stuff. Um, but they're coming out with a new version of 40K nearly every 3 years now. So that they're not really selling you a game that is finished. And you'd think after 10 editions, or you'd think after 5 editions, that they would get it right. And they'd go, okay, we finally got it right. We finally got the game right. But no, 3 years later, almost like clockwork, here's another one. And and you know, like how do you have 10 editions of a game and you still haven't got it figured out right? Because my cynical side tells me that they don't really want to get it right, because they're probably already working on 11th edition, and in another 3 years they're going to release a new version of it, and then they want everybody to buy that new version. So it's really weird. I think it's really strange that they just continuously re-release the same boxed game with different rules 10 different times. It
No,
is.
it's necessary.
I'm just like, how do you not get it right? Right? Like how have you done this 10 different editions, and every time there's this big celebration that, oh, we fixed everything and now we got it right, and it's like, no, no, you didn't. It's because we know you're gonna be
I'll be right there.
redoing it all in another 3 years, and you're gonna try and convince everybody that this is the $350 box set that's gonna fix everything from before. And it's like, oh my god.
It was amusing though.
What? Oh, the
The
rules arguments that were going on in there. Like, how is it not clear? How are there rules? How are they not able to
Well,
write
and
clear rules?
there were several, like there was a book, there was a phone, there were different interpretations
Yeah,
all over the map.
yeah.
So it just added to the chaos. And it
Oh,
was honestly kind of
she
enjoyable.
enjoyed it. She was like
I immediately
snickering
held like it caught my attention, and I was as we
be-
walked around them. I was
because
like,
I used to like live in that environment like 20 hours a day, right? I tend to tune it out. Like, I hear it in the
well,
background.
you tune out a lot. I mean, I'm very attuned to people around us. I'm like, did you hear what she said? And he's like, who? What?
No, no, I tune people out. I don't listen to what people are saying.
There's some
But,
hot gossip out there.
yeah, yeah. So anyway, top of marks for beautiful figures. As a matter of fact, I even bought a box of
Okay, I'm gonna.
figures. Okay, I even bought a box of miniatures from the store. So just beautiful stuff. I like finding things that I think I'll be able to use in a lot of different stuff. Let's see what comments we got. That was supposed to be not getting it right. I don't know. I still love Space 1889 stuff. I love Space 1889 stuff. Now, unfortunately, I showed Bessy their Lord of the Rings line, and
Ooh.
she was not impressed with the Lord of the Rings. She's a big Lord of the Rings fan, but compared to their other figures and the production quality of their other stuff, she looked at the Lord of the Rings stuff and was not impressed. And I would have to agree with her, because they're slightly smaller. I still had my game store when Lord of the Rings first came out, and I was pretty disappointed when Lord of the Rings came out, and I couldn't mix my Warhammer Fantasy stuff with Lord of the Rings or vice versa because the weird scaling and stuff like that. It's like, why why is that? A lot of the Lord of the Rings minis are still old casts. I always thought the Lord of the Rings set was their best effort. You know what? And as far as the rules, I don't think I ever got into it because by that time I was starting to tune out. By that time I was starting to tune out GW, and I probably didn't give the Lord of the Rings rules a close enough look. But there's a good example. Have they re-released new editions of Lord of the Rings every 3 years or 4 years? I don't know. I don't know. Oh, they have. I don't know. I'm concerned their best set of rules ever was Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay. You know what? We all like different stuff. Um I I think it may have been like we just came off a big, and this is, going back, in history. We just came off of a big Necromunda campaign, and we just loved the heck out of Necromunda and played it relentlessly, and had a lot of fun with it. And that's the thing, as long as the rules don't get too much in the way, it's really about who your buddies are, and getting your friends around the table and having a ball. That's what gaming is about. The rules, in my opinion, are secondary as long as they're not too 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 goofy. Right? You can have rules that you're just like scratching your head and giving up on, and you just, don't want to have anything to do with. But as long as the rules aren't too goofy, you can hang in there as long as folks are having a ball. And if you want to be in gaming, you got to kind of look at GW stuff if you want to go to conventions and things like that, because that's what's being played. So, it is what it is. Mordheim, I think, was the last of their games that I actually opened, was the original Mordheim. Um, and that's when I was looking at it, and I'm not saying it's a bad game, but there were things in it that were just kind of bothered me, and I was just like, I don't like the way this is kind of being done. This feels like it should be done a little bit different. But until you actually design your own game, you pretty much have to. Only 3 editions of the Lord of the Rings, he says. You know what's great? Using Paul Pally rules to play Inquisitor. Yeah, yeah, that would be fun. Beautiful minis for Mordheim, and I would agree. I think I think in my opinion, and there are a lot of companies making beautiful miniatures out there that are just exquisite. Games Workshop has continued to raise the bar over and over, and I think they're still tops in my book. They're some of the top figure makers that are out there. I think Lord of the Rings is on their third set of rules. Yeah, yeah. Talked about Kabageta's set of rules releasing GW's War of the Rings fits the bill. Yeah, yeah. It's good stuff. Good stuff. Anyway, that was Bessy's introduction to like some actual gaming. Um, you know, the funk that she described, I didn't notice it, but then that's the environment that I was raised in. So that's like I was around the funk constantly. So it's one of the many things that I tune out. Um, Anywho, um, let us know if you're interested in helping out with playtesting. It is very important to me. So if you're interested in helping us look over some of the spells and give some of them a try, at least read through it and give us your opinion, and that is really important part of the process. far too often we share something with folks and then we don't hear anything back, and that's really disappointing, and it's no help whatsoever. So please, if you feel like you could spend the time to go through the list and give us some honest feedback, because playtesting is so important to me, it is important to understand that what anything that we talk about right now can easily be changed over the next couple months before anything actually gets published. So that's kind of part of the process. That's how we did Pulp Alley, and it's one of the reasons why, well, we're on our second edition. And I feel really pretty happy with the rules, and I love that we actually get rules questions. But oftentimes, when I go back and I look, whenever we get rules questions, I like to go back and read the rule book and see if if I based my answer purely on the rules as they were written. Of course, I know the intention behind what it was written. What would I say is the answer? And sometimes, there's some gray room there, but most of the time, it is very clear what is written. So I'm pretty happy. We try to be very, very, very clear in the way we write the rules, and sometimes we get it right, sometimes we don't. All right, boys and girls, I guess we're going to call it an evening. I bought my Kill Team book when they released it and thought they finally got it right. Then they had to start changing it. It's already a different game. Oh, that's too bad. I would help playtesting, but I hate Monopoly. Well, that is a problem. A friend went to con where they put deodorant in the free swag bag. Oh dear, oh dear. Absolutely on board for playtesting. Thank you, Marty. Thank you, sir. When would playtesting be? I had no idea. When I'm not professional enough to know that sort of question. It could be next week. It could be next month. These are rules that I have quite literally been working on for probably the last 2 years. Now, not consistently, but I started working on them a couple years ago and started laying the framework of what I wanted to do. Now that I'm back to it, I'm kind of working, starting from that framework and kind of building onto it again. So I'm happy with what we had, and I think that's a good way to do rules design, because sometimes I'll go back and look at something and go, "Oh, that's kind of stupid. That's not the way it should work at all." And sometimes I'll go back to it and go, "Oh yeah, that works even better than the idea that I started with, this time around." So it's fun going back and looking at those old rules. Um, anyway, who knows when playtesting would begin? I would be interested in playtesting. Me and Charlie can play them and stuff, and magic. Good, good, good. And the other idea is, what spells are we missing? What spells do we need to kind of get in there so we have a good starting base spells? Because there's probably only going to be about 30 spells in the initial magic deck. So, what are we missing? What do we have too many of? So we'll look at things like that too. So let me know. GW Shadow Ban. Oh, oh. I like Games Workshop. I think they're a wonderful miniatures company. I think they make wonderful miniatures. One of these days they'll get the game designing right. Well, I don't think they actually want to get it right, because they know they're going to redesign the game in 3 years. So, like, as soon as 10th edition comes out, 11th edition is already underway. Send us an email or via Facebook would be a good way to let us know if you'd like to. When we game live, we could try out. Yes, yes. There's a very high probability that we will be trying some of the new Magic rules, possibly even as early as this Sunday. So uh, that'll give you an idea. My niece and her partners are big Magic users for Pathfinder. I could show them too. That would be awesome. That would be awesome. I have some old Harry Potter miniatures that I'm hoping to get painted up, uh, and maybe do some Harry Potter esque sort of games. So that could be a lot of fun, and so that'll focus on the magic side of things a lot. In the normal Pulp Alley game, just like Magic was pretty rare in H.P. Lovecraft's Cthulhu, just like Magic was pretty rare in Robert E. Howard's Hyboria. Um, in normal Pulp Alley 1930s, Magic is also rare. It's not unheard of. It's not, but it is rare to actually have somebody that can cast spells effectively. Bessie and I were talking about it, and we really didn't want it to be are you can only cast spells if you're born to be a spellcaster. Well, we want the idea that really anybody could be a spellcaster. Some people are going to do it well, and some people will do it very poorly, and some people may explode. Some people may be more of a danger to themselves and their friends when they start trying to cast spells and go, whoops, can't control it, and it goes boom and wipes them out. So that's always fun. Would be easy to organize if we had a Discord server. Hint, hint. I don't do Discord, and I'm not. I don't know how to do that sort of thing. If we had a Discord server, that would have to be somebody else because I don't know how. I can barely log into Discord when somebody else sets it up. So it's probably not going to be me that figures out how to do a Discord server. Um, I I they get me to buy new stuff by me showing them minis. You can use other games. Very cool. Very cool. Damien, I they need a way to keep getting their investors their 25%. Yeah, they are a business. You know, they are trying to make sure they are making money, and they know they can re-release the game every 3 years, and that's a big boost for their sales, especially when all of those books. I mean, I could not imagine. We played original Rogue Trader, right? Back in the what, like the 80s, 90, early 90s, right? The book that fell apart when you anyway, and had been playing it through maybe second, third edition. I don't know. I think by the time it got to about fourth edition, we had petered out and said, okay, that's enough of that. But um, yeah, they just keep remaking the game over and over again. Um, Cross, I can't understand Discord. Okay. Look at spells from Call of Cthulhu RPG and what can be adapted from there. Yep. Yep. And we have done that. We have looked at spells from other games because that helps me identify things that, oh well, I'd like a spell, from that sort of idea in the game as well, and then figuring out how to adapt it to Pulp Alley too. So we do look around at stuff. There are a lot of them that don't really work the way I would like it to work. So they don't we don't end up getting much cool stuff out of Cast a Deadly Spell. Love that movie. Yes, 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 indeed. Probably one of my favorites. I love Cast a Deadly Spell. Um, and you're right. Cheesy. Cheesy is a good one, but very enjoyable. Was Backside Games MDF kits that they said they were releasing the instructions on Discord. Oh my gosh. Yeah. No. I don't know. I don't know. It's a fun idea. I guess we always have to figure out what's going to work for us. Brothers and sisters, just a big thank you to everybody. This one went far longer than we intended. If you haven't already, make sure you hit the like button, get subscribed to our silly little channel, and do not miss our live game this Sunday. Live game, and it's going to be Bessie and me for sure because I haven't figured out anything else and got anything scheduled. I know that Vern has thrown his hat in the ring and says he wants to play again. So I got to get Vern scheduled. Who else says they wanted to get in there? Phil down in Florida signed up. Was it Dennis Cross? Did you sign up? Was it Clyde? I don't remember. Somebody else. I'll have to go back and look at my notes to figure out who all is signed up. So we'll try and get that in there. It was the new Dagger Island stuff. Frustrating. I don't know what that means. Oh, Black Site Games. They put their instructions on Discord. Yeah. Maybe it's just a generational thing. I don't know. It doesn't really work all that well for me. But I can get on there and listen to stuff. But anyway, playing us out of here, Bessie. Doodle doo 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 doo. Good night, everybody. Thank you for your being here with us tonight. We'll see you soon.